Kim here with Lead Generation Source. Today I'm going to talk about how to make pins for Pinterest and then cover some Q&A. First of all, what is Pinterest? Pinterest is considered a social media platform. And while I don't completely agree with this, because it's not very social, it is lumped into the social media platform and acts as such for purposes of search engine optimization and other backlinks. For those who don't know what that means, that's okay. Just know that it's considered a social media platform. Users pin content or create pins. From a user perspective, they can get ideas, find unique items, and save content for later. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the user perspective throughout this, but the rest of this presentation is focusing on business, using it for business. So from a business perspective, the purpose of us using Pinterest is to provide ideas related to, to our products, to our services, and reach potential customers by posting creative pins. And that will drive traffic back to our site. So the general process from the user experience is that Pinterest users can take 3 actions. Now, this is a user experience from no matter how, if you're a person using it for personal reasons or somebody using it for a business reason, right? So Pinterest users can take 3 actions. First, they can browse already pinned content for ideas, review the pins, and then follow the links. They can also, as number 2, browse the pins on Pinterest and repin them into their own boards. And number 3, while they're browsing other sites that are not on Pinterest, they can pin the content into boards to save for later. This is very similar to bookmarking sites. And this will, if you're new to Pinterest, this will make more sense as we go. So how are pins created? Pinterest provides a browser extension for at least Google and Firefox when you sign up to Pinterest. If you have already signed up for Pinterest and you don't have it, just Google it and you'll find it. That lets you, that browser extension lets you pin content by simply just scrolling over the content. And I'll show this in a little bit. Pinterest users can also upload pins directly to Pinterest. Now, as of today, right this second right now, you can only upload images and not video, but I will show you how you can still pin videos in there. Saving content with pins. Any type of user, like I said, a personal or business account, can create pins. They can save pins, they can upload pins. And like I mentioned before, there's a lot like a bookmarking site. You can organize them into boards. You can, save from just about anywhere. You can save content there. So let's take a look real quick and see how you can save content with pins. Okay, so here I am in the Google Chrome browser, and this is, if you have more than one account that you use, I don't recommend using Chrome. But if you just have one, Google Chrome is pretty good for most stuff because you can do a lot with it. So go to Pinterest.com, and if you don't have an account, you'll need to sign up. I cover that in a different video. So for now, I'm just going to focus on actually using it. You log in, obviously. So something that you can do here is that and this is again as a user experience or even as a business, if you want to pin other content, you can browse for it. And I should tell you first that this is kind of like your feed, your personal feed or your business feed, whatever you want to call it, where it comes up and it gives recommendations based on who you follow. So if you're following people that are specific to your niche, you should be seeing content that's specific to your niche. Now, I follow other people who follow me, and I'm in a group that we do like a follow exchange to help support each other. So some of the stuff I see isn't necessarily related, but some of these are because I did some searches earlier. So like here's one, how to grow your small business with Pinterest. So let's say I wanted to pin that into, and say it's basically saving it, right? So this pin there's a pin right there. So I would say save, and then I could pin it into the Pinterest for Business board that I have, and I can just save it straight in there. And then if I wanted to see it, I can go back into my profile and go into either pins, and this is showing me here on the latest pins, but let's say it was an older one. I can either click into pins and look for it or go into the boards. So now the boards, I have these all organized by, topic that I wanted to, focus each one on. So I can go into the Pinterest for Business one, that's where I saved it. And then I can come in here and there, even let me promote somebody else's pin. So if I wanted to, I could edit this. So there we go, edit that. And so I can change it to a different board. I can add sections if I wanted to, but I don't really play with sections right now too much. It doesn't really serve my purposes. So this is where, they have this link built into this description, which I don't know if it's really worth putting it there or not. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. But I can change this description to be whatever I want. I don't have to keep the description they put in there. I could change this to, I could just maybe put some hashtags in here and say Pinterest, and then I'll say hashtag small bit, oops, not space, small business, and spell it right, and then hashtag Pinterest for small business. So basically hashtags are a way to search, and so it's nice to have them in there. So I'm just going to say, I could put in here and say, get the secrets to growing your small business on Pinterest. Now I've never read this, so I don't know what it is, but I'm just going to go ahead and save it. So now when I go in and I look at this, I'll see my comments are down here. The original ones, this is hilarious, are up here, which is completely and utterly inaccurate because this says sweet and spicy bacon wrapped chicken tenders. And that has absolutely nothing to do with this pin. So this is an example of a horrible description, which we'll talk about later. So as a user, I've clicked on the pin, and assuming that somebody has actually gone in here and edited it and made it correct and that these match, I could then click on read it, and it should take me to what was pinned and not necessarily bacon wrapped something. So, and it looks like it's not found. So this is an actual old pin. So that's just lovely. But that's where you would link it. You'd have your link in here. So this is a very good example of a poor pin because it doesn't go to anything. If you have to create a pin and then you lose the content, if you're not doing redirects on your site, which is something we'll talk about in lead generation source group if you have questions on that. But if you're not doing redirects, then at least come in here every now and again, and if you have a pin that's performing, change it out. If it's not performing, I guess you can just leave the poor user experience, but that'll be up to you. So I'm actually going to go in here and edit this and say, I'm going to actually put a note in here that says it doesn't work. This pin doesn't work and is a great example of a bad pin. And then I'm going to put bad pin, just because. So, and I'm going to make a new board for that. And I'm going to change the board. I wonder if I can make a new one here. So let me make a new board because I am going to make a board that says bad pins, and I'm going to start showing everybody all the bad pins. That's the one flaw of this, is that Pinterest doesn't seem to go in and clear out anything. So once it's on here forever, and old content tends to get float to the top. So bad pin examples is going to be my board. And then I'm going to go back into that other board and change it. I hadn't planned on doing this for here, and I would normally pause it and do this, but I figured it'll show you how Pinterest works and things that you can do with it, right? So I'm going to go back into the Pinterest for Business, and I'm going to edit this, and I'm going to move it to bad pin examples. So that's how you pin content when you are on Pinterest, and when you're pinning it from already on Pinterest, that's called repinning. And if you want to search a different way, like here's one that's good, has hashtags in it, you can literally hit the hashtag or type in the hashtag for the search, and it'll come up with everything typed that way, right? Don't know why that came up, but a lot of these people will just type in Pinterest because they're putting it on Pinterest, so it's not necessarily relevant. Like, I don't know why this one came up for Pinterest. So the hashtags are nice, but they're not exact. The people are still learning them, obviously. All right, so let's see the next section. So actually, let me show you how you can save content on another site, like if it's on somebody else's site. So actually, let me go to my site, leadgenerationsource.com. I don't have a whole lot of content updated on here right now. It's most of it's going into the Facebook group. But let's go ahead and look at what I do have in here. Let's go to the webinars. Okay, let's go to a different site. I seem to be very video heavy on that, and I want to show you pictures. So this is like a page. This is an old website from 2016 that I did. And here is a picture that's on there, right? That's actually on the page. Some of them will let you like bookmark the whole page, and here's the Pinterest ad on here, and if I hit the save, it gives me a couple options that are in here, right? So this one actually looks like, I know that one's an actual picture. That one might be a picture too, but so let's say I wanted to save this one. I could say save, and then I could put it in I'm actually going to put it in the bad pin examples just to put it there. So I'm going to go with save to put it in the folder, and then I can say see it now or promote your pin. So I'm going to say see it now, or I could X out. Sometimes it'll auto close, by the way, if you don't act fast enough, but no big deal. You can just go back in and edit it the way we've talked about. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to say, okay, well, I'm going to edit this since I pinned this, and I'm going to say, you know, this is an example pin, and just leave that like there. Now I can change, this is going to the website, but I can change it to whatever I want. And if I were creating this if I were like creating this for like driving traffic legitimately, and it's not just a pin I'm pinning to have somewhere and create a backlink, then I would probably want a trackable link. So I'll talk more about that in a little bit. All right, so that's how you do content, both, you know, repinning, and then of course when you're on other sites and you pin the content yourself and it's unique and original. So let me close this out, and then we'll go back to here. So uploading pins to Pinterest. So we talked about pinning and repinning, but the other thing you can do is you can upload a pin, and as I mentioned, this has to be an image. So I will show you it for images and video, and this is show you how to pin video. So before you upload a pin to Pinterest, and this would be specifically for that image one, you need to make sure you've created a pin that is likely to convert. And we'll talk more about that in a minute, but I want to make sure I say that before you jump over and start like making a bunch of pins. So don't pause it and make a bunch of pins, keep going, and then you can make a bunch of pins. So let's look at the process for both images and then video. And then as a note, I said you can create a video pin when you make an ad, which that's the way that Pinterest has traditionally allowed that. But today I'm just going to focus on doing it the free way. So here's what I'm going to go back here and get out of this. It doesn't matter where you are. Obviously, this bar stays up there. So as long as you're in Pinterest and logged in, you can click this, scroll over the plus button, and you'll see this upload image. So you click upload image, and here you can go ahead and upload whatever image you want. Now I don't have I had a pin here. Here we go. Here's a pin. And let's say that, you know, why chatbots are good and why you need them. And you can add the URL to where you want to go. So let's just say I want to go to my main site. Now, as I mentioned before, I would recommend when you're creating a pin that you make this a trackable link. And if you have WordPress, you can use the Pretty Links Lite, which is a plugin. You know, that's called Pretty Links, is what the name kind of changes on it. If you search for Pretty Links, you'll find it. The free version should be fine for you to at least create some trackable links. It's not 100% accurate, so if you really want accuracy or you have the budget, then I would do something like Click Perfect. And then you can put a description in here, and I would get your keyword in here. If you're going to do, when you do the trackable, let's say I wanted to do chatbot was my, in fact, I think I actually have a site on chatbots. So we will go to chatbots. I have a page to it. So I'm going to go ahead and put it to that page, which should be that. And then, of course, if I would ideally make that trackable link and not just copy the page over. But either way will work. You know, it's not the end of the world. You'll get some analytics with a business account on Pinterest anyway. So I wouldn't be too concerned if you don't know how to do some sort of redirect. And we'll cover redirects in a completely different video. Now in the description, since chatbot seems to be the description or the keyword I'm looking for, I want to put that in my description. So chatbots are hot. Here's, and I'm going to say click the visit button. And I don't know if it's going to say visit or not, and I'll show you in just a second what I mean. To find out why they are good and why you need them. And then I'm going to do hashtag chatbots, hashtag messenger, hashtag Facebook, which Facebook doesn't own Messenger anymore, but since a lot of people still associate it with that, I'm going to go ahead and put it in there. And I'll do Instagram as well, just in case, because Messenger is also supported in Instagram now. And then hashtag marketing. And you can do up to 20 hashtags. So I'm going to leave it at that though, just so I have it. So I'm going to say done, and then I get to put it in a board, right? So I'm going to go ahead and put it in, let's put it best of lead generation source. I'm still building that one. So I can see it now, so I can see the pin. Now this is after I've clicked into the pin. Assuming it loads. And I'm testing these two colors. That's part of why I left it that way. You may look at this and go, wow, that's the ugliest pen I've ever seen. That's okay. I'm testing it. And we'll talk more about testing later. So here we go. So this is, this is what I did here for the description, which is kind of interesting because, and it does say visit. This one does say visit. So click the visit button. So it matches. That's good. If I had put click visit and it says go to or see, if it's anything else here, I would have to go back in, edit that, and change that out because you want it to be clear. So that's this. This may change and be different for you, as we saw on a different one. There's a huge description up there, and Pinterest is doing something with their descriptions. So just understand that what you see may not be the same as what I see, and what you see on one pin may not be what you see on another pin. So that's how you can upload a picture one. So now let's do a video, and we're going to go to YouTube. And we're going to go Pinterest for business and just see. Oh, in fact, let me go into, I did a webinar on this, so we'll go into my webinar. All right, so here's this. So now what I'm going to do is, once I'm in here and I'm viewing it, whether it's yours or somebody else's, it doesn't matter. You go ahead and click this share button here, and then find the Pinterest pin. See right here? See, it'll be anywhere along here. Sometimes I have it show up in the front, sometimes it's down back here more. So I'm going to click that Pinterest button and wait for it to load. And now it brings in the actual video. And so I'm going to choose the board. So I'm going to go to lead generation source webinars. I'm going to save that. And I'm going to say see it now. And so you can see how it actually plays in here, right? So if I push play, and that plays. I got the volume control. It's embedded in here. So what's interesting about that is that now, because it's embedded, I have to decide. If I say visit, right now it's linked to YouTube. So I'm like, wait, do I really want it to go back to YouTube? Do I need it to? It depends on what you're trying to do. If you want to drive them back to YouTube because you're trying to increase your YouTube views or something, then yeah, leave it there. Otherwise, I would change this website here to the original one I wanted. It was chatbots, right? So, well, this one's not supposed to be chatbots, but I would change it to what I wanted and then have them, now it'll be, they visit and they'll go to where you want them to, but that video is still there. See, so now it goes to where I want it to on the page. So I'm going to I'll leave it there for now. They can watch the video here. Now, the one thing is they can even do full screen, right? So there's really no reason for them to have to leave the Pinterest site now because it's actually embedded on Pinterest. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, these don't autoplay like they do if you're scrolling. Like there's a lot of different videos in here, right? And these don't autoplay in the feed, but there is a way, like if you're doing ads, that some of them will autoplay. And again, we're not going to cover that, but I just wanted to make that so you understand that this does not autoplay when you do it this way. So let's go back here. All right, so we've covered both the images and the video, and you know how to do that, so you can pin just about any content now. So now let's talk about the purpose of the pin. When we create pins for our business, we need to consider the purpose of the pin. So now keep in mind, as a user, when they're pinning, they're pinning it because it's something that they're interested in, something that they like, something that's inspiring them, something that's just fun that they want to keep for later. They're bookmarking it, that it's something that they like, and that's why they're keeping it. So when we create a pin, that's what we want. That's what the end goal is to get them to pin it because of some reason. They found it funny, they found it that they related to it in some way. So there are two main goals that you have with your pin, and that's because the first thing that they see is that image. So the first goal is to get the viewer to stop scrolling. I mean, they're scrolling through this, going however fast that they're going looking for stuff. You need something that stands out from everybody else and can get them to stop scrolling. The second part is to get the viewer to click the pin. So this means, it has to be enticing enough or relate to them enough that they can click on it. There's not a whole lot you have to control over that, but you want to keep that in mind when you're creating it. So after they click, this opens the pin like we've seen, and now you want them to click the link to visit your site, right? So we want them to click visit or go to site or whatever that the button ends up saying. The purpose of the description is not to make the conversion. That's what your landing page, your sales page, your opt-in page, whatever that you're sending them to, that's the purpose of that page. So if you've ever heard of the discussion about Facebook ads, the Facebook ad doesn't actually sell the product or create the opt-in, right? They're just trying, unless that's your goal, unless you do an opt-in ad, but the idea is that you get them to stop, you get them to click the next spot. So that's what the purpose of the pin is. You don't have to put a huge description in there or put anything else. The idea is to create the action of clicking to the next section. And then of course use relevant hashtags. Most people are not doing this, so this is your opportunity to capitalize on the viewers who want to see related pins by clicking a hashtag. And people will click on that hashtag. It's extremely popular. So hashtags have, Twitter, I think Twitter even started it. Twitter kind of started embedding that. Instagram has definitely fine-tuned that process, and there's an entire generation that are hashtag people, right? So now what we need to do is capitalize on that hashtag and say, let's make sure we get them in there. And like I said, majority of pins don't have that, especially the older ones. So with all the new ones, you definitely need to make sure that you're putting that effort in and putting in the hashtags when you can. But keep in mind, as we saw earlier, we want to make sure that those hashtags are relevant, because if they're not, people are going to ignore your pins anyway. So just make sure they're showing up where they're relevant. Okay, so the anatomy of the pin, and don't mimic this pin. This is just a pin. This is just one that I threw up there to show you some different things that you can do. And that's different than what you've seen on there. So I'll test that one. That's something I just created the other day. There is no perfect pin. You need to test a variety to see what will work. I mean, the Pinterest employees actually put out webinars, and they're like, oh yeah, this is what you need in a pin. And I'm looking at it and going, I would never click on that ever in a million years. I have no reason to, right? Because I'm not the audience that they were talking to. They were talking to people in like home decor or I don't know, selling a couch or something. So I'm like, well, that wouldn't cause me to click because I'm not interested in that. So you have to test. You can't just take what somebody says is the perfect pin and go with it. You need to test. Personally, some of my best performing pins were blurry, out of focus, low quality, and very small. And compared to the rest, I was going, why would anybody click on that? But I've had people click through and go to Etsy and click through and go to my sites, both of those, because they found a pin on Pinterest and they thought it was interesting enough to go through, and I've made plenty of sales that way as well. So Pinterest encourages the high quality professional images that are staged, though like I said, I questioned some of their recommendations, and if we had more time, I'd explain why. The optimal size is either a rectangle size like this one or square, and the pixels that they recommend are 600 by 900 or 600 by 600. And to be honest, if it's 800 by 800, that's fine. I mean, it'll scale, so I wouldn't worry too much. Just make sure that it's the ratio. So this 600 by 900 is what they call a 2:3 ratio, and this is of course even there. So test between the long pins and the square pins. Don't rely on one and think that everybody says like, oh yeah, the long pins are doing wonderful. Well, according to Pinterest, who has the data, both long and square work very well depending on, the different niches. So you need to test to see which one fits better for your audience and for, your overall design, your strategies. So while they report that the 600 by 900 and 600 by 600 work the best, they've also changed as of like within the last 2 months. They've shifted all of their pins to fit in those parameters. So Pinterest reported that that those two are the best, but then they also started cutting off pins that were too long and resizing them. You'll see some that are a little bit smaller, like that are they might be like 600 by 400 or something. And I don't know what those parameters are, other than maybe someone didn't have them at least 600 by 600 long, so they just made them shorter. So they do seem to stick with that 600 width though. Components of pin creation. We've talked about the image. It needs to be rectangular or square. You need a 2:3 ratio or square pin. Pins larger than this or disproportioned will scale or chop off. And you could use that as a strategy, which we'll talk another time about, but that's just something to consider. Link. You have that link in there, right? If possible, place a trackable link for pins you create specifically for conversions. Now, that's going to be your money pins. If you're just pinning some stuff to create some content, or you have like 100 articles on your site and you really don't care if everybody goes to all of them, I wouldn't worry too much about putting trackable links. Like I said, you'll get some analytics from Pinterest anyway, but I would put a trackable link on ones that are, and you should have Google Analytics on your site to also help with that. But you want to put I would put something that would at least see how many clicks are on that, if possible, for ones that are, a little bit higher the ones you want to focus on. So if you have one that goes straight to an opt-in page, and you're like, hey, I want to see how much traffic I'm getting from this specific pin, then put in a specific trackable link for that pin. So that way you can say, oh, this pin gave me, 15 clicks while this other pin only gave me 5. Like I said, Pinterest should be able to give you some of that data, but I don't rely on, I'd like to have multiple sources to show me what's going on. So the description, Pinterest is adjusting how the description looks as I showed you. So right now, just keep it simple and encourage the click, and make sure you include hashtags. Make sure the hashtags are relevant, and make a max of 20 hashtags per pin. That is Pinterest's rule. That's not like a recommendation, that's their rule. So I don't know if they just stop showing them after 20 or what, but they said they have Pinterest employees, when they gave their webinar, said do not include more than 20 hashtags. So the best pins have these elements in common. For products or services, the higher engagement pins show off the product or service in use. I see a lot of ones with white backgrounds that I don't see a lot of, I mean, we can't see the engagement like we used to, but I can tell just by, they don't seem to be very engaging. The ones that are, from what I've seen from the ones that I've done tested in some of my pages, the ones with the white background do not, they don't produce as good of results as ones with, in the product in service or in use. So like on somebody, or, and sometimes that doesn't work either. So you got to like kind of test and see. So I would do both if you can. Pins that have some sort of emotional reaction or are slightly controversial or create curiosity are also ones that are very popular. They'll get more engagement, more people clicking on them, more people clicking through if they have some sort of emotion or controversy or curiosity to them. Infographics. Now, infographics are the ones that have like a lot of data, different size fonts, going to, a very image-based, but talk about information, right? So they're giving you good information, but in a organized and fun way. And it's all in one image. So that's what they call an infographic. And they're still very popular, at least as of the last couple months, but you need to consider the size. If you want people to see the full pin and it's too long, the viewer will have to click on it. And I am not entirely sure where they cut off yet. And it seems to be, like there when they first started shifting, it was cutting off in like the middle of the pin. So if they don't have a specific cutoff, like, okay, we're going to only take from this section, it would be very difficult to create an infographic that would be effective for that. So just keep that in mind, that while infographics were very popular, we don't know if they're going to continue to be very popular because they're not going to be as effective as they once were on the feed. So a couple of things to keep in mind about Pinterest. There are loyal Pinterest followers. These people search and rely on Pinterest for their information. Like that's where they go, right? If your pins are not in Pinterest, those people cannot find you. So just think about it this way. Like if you don't have a website and somebody goes onto Google and they can't, they're not going to find you because they can search all day long. But if your information is not in Google because you don't have a website or you're not indexed, then they're not going to find you. Same thing with Pinterest. If they go to Pinterest and they search, it's not going to pull up searches off of Google or searches off of somebody else's site. So if you're not on Pinterest, they can't find you there. So being on Pinterest is probably better than not being on Pinterest, just simply because that gives somebody an opportunity to find you. Now, being on Pinterest also does not guarantee you traffic because there are a lot of elements to that, which we'll talk more about over, the upcoming weeks. So pictures on Pinterest, here's another thing to consider. Pictures on Pinterest, they rank in Google Images quite well. In fact, every time I do some sort of search and I click into images, I'm constantly seeing stuff for Pinterest. And when I'm on my phone, it's very annoying because the Pinterest app constantly wants to open and take me out of the browser. And I'm like, So it's very annoying, but yes, that's just evidence that the Pinterest images do rank quite well. So it might take some time, but make sure you optimize that description with proper hashtags and include your main keyword in the description so Google knows what it's all about. And that way you'll rank better for it. So one of the things that we're going to talk about in the future, not today because this is already going long enough, but in the future what we're going to talk about is how we create traffic specifically from Pinterest. And this is kind of a map, and this is from a group that I'm in, and eventually you should consider joining that group and using their software. But right now it's closed down, so I'm just going to tell you the kind of the strategy, right? And in the lead generation source group, this is what we're working towards. In stage 1, we created a business Pinterest account. Then we created 10 boards related to our niche. And then we saved, and it doesn't necessarily have to be related to your niche. You want at least a couple of boards related to your niche so that it looks like, somebody can clearly tell what you're interested about. But if you only have like 2 boards that really fit, or 2, sub niches that really fit, then, you can have the other boards be other things or semi-related, or just a couple that you're interested in. It doesn't really matter on that. It's the 10 boards, and then save 100. Well, you want to save ultimately more than 100 pins, but because you're going to be creating more than 100 pins over time. But for now, if you don't have pins, or if you don't have the content to create, just save, repin 100 pins. And only do about 20 to 30 per day and spread them out into the 10 boards. So ideally 10 boards with 10 pins in each, but you can make that number whatever you want. The other part you're doing is that you're following other people. So you're gonna follow people, and you're gonna build to 100 plus followers. And as you keep building your followers, that'll help, because the end goal is to join groups. So that's stage 2. Well, I say end goal. So it'd be the next goal is joining groups. So stage 2 is we create a main board with our 30 plus pins to our content. So we want at least 30, and that's because if we want to get into some of the more discerning groups, then we need to make sure that that's the standard is 30 good pins to good content. So if you have bad content, you need to start thinking about good content. But this is stage 2, is we're going to create a main board, the best of lead generation source or something like that. That would be the, with at least 30 pins in it. It makes it easy for people to find and go straight to. Then after that, we're going to start joining Pinterest groups that are related to our niche, and then we're going to follow the group guidelines to share pins in there. That's how we're going to start driving traffic. Now, I will say that, in lead generation source, we had a topic recently where somebody was concerned, that was from this group, that was concerned that they weren't getting the conversions, and that's stage 3. Right, now that you're getting the traffic, now let's go to stage 3, and let's talk about maintenance mode and testing. Now, maintenance mode and testing is basically creating more content, creating additional content, creating additional pins to the same content, and testing those additional pins into other groups, and then split testing the different style of pins. We talked about not just square and rectangle, but different images on there, different strategies for the pin. You need to see what works for your audience, for your group. Each group may be unique. One group may not like any type of images whatsoever, that the people in there may be less likely to click on it, whereas another group may be more likely to click on it if there's neon colors on it. You just never know until you try. And of course, looking at what group pins are the most popular will help. So now I'm to the Q&A, and these were ones that were submitted in a prior webinar, so I want to go ahead and cover those. Does every pin need perfection? Absolutely not. When you first start your account, you will, or you have already pinned other people's content and boards. You can do the same thing with your content. Create a main board with your perfect pins. These are the pins you want to use to drive traffic. And then keep saving your images, videos, and content and pins in other boards. So, and like I mentioned before, some of my best performing pins were not perfect pins. And I may not have been the ones that pinned them. In fact, I have some that came straight from Etsy that I didn't pin. Either Etsy put them on there or somebody else saved them from Etsy and put them on there. And those were some of the best performing pins I've had. And they were horrible pictures. Horrible. But that's what that particular niche was looking for, and they liked that, and it generated quite a bit of sales from that. So there is no perfect pin. So and if you think that, okay, this is what you think is a perfect pin, just keep in mind that not all of your pins need to look like that. So I would vary it and test some different things. And once you do find one that works, then start doing minor tweaks. Don't do major adjustments or anything else. You just want to change one thing at a time. How do I find good hashtags? So this one is actually a really good question that came in, and it's, so type a hashtag into the Pinterest search, and I'll show you how to do this in just a second. So example, like hashtag Etsy. Scroll through what you find and see what other people are using for hashtags, and then apply what is relevant. And then, of course, remember a maximum 20 hashtags per listing. So let me show you what I mean by this. So now I'm in Pinterest here. Now, of course, when I went in here, let's edit this. Maybe. Let's not. Let's go in here then, and we're going to go to, we'll do the hashtag Etsy. And now these are all ones that have the hashtag Etsy on it. And so now you can start seeing, like, they have hashtag accessories, hashtag scarf, hashtag red, hashtag planner, hashtag yellow. So I would go through and see, let's say that Etsy was what you were going through, you're going for, and like, okay, well, maybe I'll go through here and see what else they have to say. Etsy is craft stuff, so you might want to even put in hashtag craft if it's related to craft. Now, not all of Etsy is craft anymore, but that's just the way it is. They have hashtag jewelry, hashtag necklace, so some of these are making it more category. I mean, a lot of these are actually very category. This one has hashtag Etsy seller, hashtag Etsy shop, hashtag Etsy love. So you can go through and find other ones that you think might apply and then just add them to what you want. So if we were to go back and do Pinterest for business, right? Pinterest for business. And then we can see, content marketing, that's a good one, right? And then they've got Pinterest tips, that's a good one. Pinterest inspired, that's a good one. So I mean, you can get a lot of different ones in here. Pinterest course, Pinterest for business. See, that's an exact match there. And most of these are going to have Pinterest for business in here. That's why you can click on any of these and see. So that's how you get some more ideas on the hashtags. And the next one, how do you make a trackable link? And I talked about this a little bit earlier, and that is if you have a WordPress site, you can use Pretty Links Lite plugin as a free resource. And then Click Perfect is a paid option, and there's a 14-day free trial. And you should, not just could, but should shift to something like that when you're making money, because you want something that's more reliable about tracking. Now, like I said, your analytics may end up being enough for you. So look at your analytics, and we'll talk more about analytics, later on as we're pulling in more information. And that way you can see what's there, and if you even do want the trackable link. What I like about Click Perfect option, this is why I would build to that. And both of these you can do this with. Pretty Links, the light version even, you can go in there. And so let's say you create a link. So I'm going to say I create lead generation source .com/chatbots as it's basically going to be a forward to where I want it to go, right? So now when they click on that, they'll forward to whatever page I want it to be on. Well, with both of these options, you have the option to go in and change it out. Now, Click Perfect is going to be much more scalable on this, and there's going to be a lot more options. But remember that first pin I looked at where they had it linked through and they didn't have a redirect. Well, theoretically, if you keep track of where you're linking from, you could go in anytime and redirect where that link is going. So if you've moved it or you have an updated resource, you can just shift it. You can shift where that's going to the new resource. So that's why I like having that as well. It's not just to track it, but to also make it so that it's changeable without you having to go back in and change it. So let's say you use that particular link in 5 of your pins. Now you don't have to go into 5 pins and change it. You can just go over and say, okay, well, I'm going to put this in to the new resource and not have to worry about changing it because it's redirecting on its own. So we'll talk more about that when we get into it, and hop on into the Lead Generation Source Facebook group and ask questions if you need to. Do you have an example of a good pin? So I had to go through and find some pins. Now these, I'm not going to go with these are great, but these are pretty good, right? So this one, for example, put your baby to sleep with this simple 1-minute trick. So obviously the copy on this is good, but what I really like about it is that if you didn't have this wording here, this would make no sense, right? It's just a picture of a baby. It would make no sense. I mean, yeah, you could read this, but most people are going to see the picture and they're not going to read this. That's going to be their second step. So if you haven't stopped them from scrolling, it's pointless. And then if they read this, they may click on it without ever looking at this. But they may not stop scrolling just because there's a baby there. They see, okay, well, this is something about a baby, okay, and they see sleep. That was a big one, sleep. So sleep, baby, going to sleep. Oh, okay. So that one is really good. It makes sense. It goes together. I think that's pretty good. There's some stuff down here that I would change, like there's no hashtags visible, and I'd have to go in and look from there to see what's going on. But like I said, that's not necessarily their fault. But this is a pretty good pin. Here's another one that's really good. So this one's got the food there, but honestly, I have no idea what it is, right? If you just were to see just the food, you'd go, oh, that looks good. That's some fried rice. No, wait, what is that? And then now you can see it's something vegetable biryani or whatever, right? I still don't know what that means, but it looks tasty. And now I'm like, oh, okay, it's not fried rice. I think I'm interested in it. Click on it. And then this last one, 12 no-bake energy bites. So the picture, I really like this one because it's got the pictures here. It's very clean. It tells you that it's no-bake, and even here they snuck in the gluten-free. And then they have the titles on there. So I don't know that these this font might be too small. I'd want to split test that with and without it just to see what people, which one people like better. But the 12 no bake energy bites, that's nice, and I mean it's appealing. It would stop me. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then it's gluten free. So those are some examples of some good ones. And this one you can see the hashtag in here. So these are some less than good pin examples, and here's why. This one, remember I told you that most people aren't going to read down here immediately. So I may not even stop scrolling. If I saw this and it says good night, sleep tight, I'm like, I mean, what caught my eye, I was like, what the heck makes you go to sleep? So it says essential oil blend down here, but I might actually sneak that in up here. Good night, sleep tight, essential oil blend. And just simply because if people look at that, they may think that it's something completely different or may not even realize. And if they're looking for essential oils, that's a good one, right? And I mean, obviously it's in their hashtag, so that's excellent. Now this one, I like that it is interesting enough to make you stop, right? Skeletons in the closet. But to be honest, I clicked on the link and it still had no description and there was no information about it whatsoever. So yes, it creates that curiosity, but you need a little bit more than skeletons in the closet. I mean, are you purchasing artwork? Is it a story? Am I going to porn? I mean, I don't even know, right? So, I mean, that's what I did not like about that. So I would, even if you only leave the skeletons in the closet as the image, then you need to have a better description and then make sure that people know what they're clicking because they're going to be less likely to click through unless they know what it is. Now, I say that, but people are clickers. So just keep that in mind that I say that and your fan base may end up being a bunch of clickers that completely disobey all those rules. Now, this one's not horrible, but I don't know that I would stop. And same thing with like this one with the background. I'd probably put, even though the Pinterest is like this where it's white, I would probably put like some sort of border around this one. This one, same thing. I would put a border around it or have a different background than that gray. It needs to, something in here needs to pop better. It just looks too bland. Now, kids do sell better than, say, adults or a lamp. But the other thing I have here is, 2 to 4-year-old waking at night. I didn't bother to click through, but why is it limited to 2 to 4-year-old? So that one does create curiosity, but what if I have a 5-year-old? Do I not apply here? What if I have a 1.5-year-old? Does that count? And so I don't know that I would put this 2 to 4-year-old waking up at night. I might change that to toddler waking at night. And then, tip from a doctor that helps. I would probably change that copy as well. So the reason why I don't like this one is mostly because of the copy, but I would put a border around here or change the background color a little bit, and then maybe even consider a different image. I mean, a happy kid smiling is probably not what you're thinking of when you think of a child that's coming up in the middle of the night. My 5-year-old wakes up, she actually doesn't go to sleep, so she's not technically waking up. She stays in her room playing, and then she comes in while I'm trying to work, and it's like midnight, and I'm trying to frantically get ready to go to bed, and she's, bugging me so I can't get my work done, and I'm going, wait, how do I get her to go to sleep? So if I saw this 2 to 4-year-old waking at night and I have a 5-year-old, would I click on it? Probably not. So keeping that in mind, 2, 3, 4, they're specifically targeting that. I'd have to know why, and I may want to even qualify that in here, or just swap that out to toddler, and then I would maybe make this more than tip from a doctor. Say this one tip will help your toddler sleep at night or something like that. So that's just, I'm a little bit picky about the copy. And then, like I said, but the image wise, I would change this out so that it's got at least a border around it or something that would make it less, the gray is definitely better than white, but a lot of them are looking gray. A lot of the white background and the grays and stuff like that, there's just a lot of that on there. So I would change that out. All right, so how do you change the button visit to something else? As far as I can tell, Pinterest determines what the button is. This has changed again recently. So it could change again by the time you're watching this, but it looks like Pinterest determines the call to action on that button based on the type of content and then the website or that the URL is going to. So I have seen that some of the buttons that will say go to blah, 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 or visit, that it'll have like the actual domain name on it. So I think that's because they claimed their website, and I'm still in the process of testing that, because some sites are easier to claim than others. So I'm still in the process of testing that to see how that is, but that's what it seems to be. And I'm sure Pinterest has an answer to that, but finding anything on Pinterest is kind of a nightmare when it's about Pinterest. So, but I'll look into that more and see if there's a way to change it or if there's something specific, but it's not that critical. But I would, just make sure that when you do your call to action, make sure those match. How do you make a pin? Okay, so we talked a little bit about loading a pin, but something I did neglect to talk about was how do you make a pin. So there are tons of different platforms and resources available to help you create a pin. So I'm just going to cover two just real quick. So for a free option, use canva.com, just the free version. Don't worry about any paid version or anything. It's fine for creating most of the content. I have a typo there. For a more flexible paid option, I recommend Adobe, and you can use either Photoshop or Illustrator depending on your skill set. I've done it in both, so either way, you just need to save them as export it as a JPEG. If you don't have the money, just use canva.com. So let's real quick take a look at canva.com because I want you to see how easy it is, right? So if you don't have an account, you can log in, or you can sign up for one, and you can log in, with your Facebook and stuff. Mine's pretty much open all the time. So let's see here. If I want to click on I can click on create a design, but what I want to show you here is this create a design here. Click on more, and you'll see all these options, right? So they've recommended for you, which you can, sometimes those will be accurate. They've got social media posts, and right here is Pinterest graphic. But they've got documents, blogging, and ebooks, marketing materials. I mean, they've got a ton of stuff in here, right? So those are preset. The Pinterest graphic is already preset. Now, which is funny, the 735 by 1102 may not be exact. So we may see this change, but it still works pretty good right now. So that's not what they said, right? They said, what did I say, 600 by, whatever I said, 600 by 900, or yeah, 600 by 900, I believe. So that's the long one. So if you wanted to do, now let's say you didn't want to do the long one. Let's say you decided you wanted to do a square one. You could also use custom dimensions and you could type it in. So you can do the 600 by 900 or you do the 600 by 600, right? But for this purpose, I'm going to go ahead and just use their Pinterest graphic here. And then I'm going to show you here, they actually have some layouts. Some of them are free. And let's say, like, I like this one a lot, right? Because other than the white background. So I like this one enough that I'm going to see if I can delete. Okay, so they probably don't have a background in here. So let's say I wanted to change that background to something else, right? To, let's see, maybe a blue. Yeah, maybe a blue, right? And then I can do something with the text if I wanted to. And then I'm going to say how to eat bread. I create some curiosity there, right? So then, and I can change this picture out. I can do it, you don't have to keep it all. You can change the picture out. You can do whatever you want. This is more just layouts, but then I just download it, and you can download it as a PNG or JPEG. I usually just do a JPEG, even though they recommend the PNG, because places like Facebook and a couple of other places, they do not let you upload a PNG. So I just download a JPEG, and then I'm ready to upload. So you can adjust these however you want. So really, when you look at the different options, there are a lot of different options in here, right? Oh, so let's actually look at that real quick. Let's say that I wanted to do, I'm going to replace that. Let's say, I mean, this one's okay because the white border's there, but what's going to happen is the white's going to kind of blend in with the white. So let's say that I wanted to change it so that instead of having, I like the white background here, but I want a border on it. You can go into Elements, and you can go into Frames, and then, wait, or is it just Elements? No, maybe it's not Frames. I want shapes. Maybe that's what I want, shapes. I want free only, first of all. Oh, that's not, I clicked on the wrong one. That was, sorry, I clicked on the, okay, you're going to have to play with these. So here we go, here's a border. So like here's a border, and then you can resize it, right? And you may have to play with it a little bit to get it to be what you want, but then once it's there, now see, that looks better than, oh well, once I fix it all the way. And of course, if you have Photoshop, you could actually make some templates and save them. And then now there we go. That one looks a lot better than without the border for a Pinterest pin, in my opinion. I would definitely keep a border on anything that has a lighter, that's a lighter pin, because the white background just kind of, it doesn't really do it justice. Now, and again, you need to split test these. Throw a white background out there, see what happens. So anyway, so that is, I was just playing with these. I like to play with this. So Canva's free, and I highly recommend that. as a tool. All right, and another question I got was, how do you create content for Pinterest? So this really depends on your niche, but I've created a separate video that focuses on content creation. So check around this video somewhere, depending on where you're watching it, and you'll find the link to the resource list. And then don't forget to join the Lead Generation Source Facebook group to ask questions and collaborate with others. And I hope you've enjoyed this. Please, feel free to give me some comments, preferably straight to my face, not just comments on there. Message me and just say, hey, I have these questions, can you include them for next time? Or, come on. I would really love to see people chime in the group, but everybody seems to be really shy. So come on into the Lead Generation Source group. I do keep it private so we can ask questions without the world seeing, but that means you just have to request access. But I grant everybody access who wants to come in, unless there's something blatantly obvious that makes it look like I shouldn't. But I will kick people out who are rude too. So just know that you are protected when you come into our group. If people pick on you or they're mean to you, I will make them suffer. So come on in, join us, and we're going to keep building on Pinterest. And we also have a bunch of videos on search engine optimization already. So join us, follow me on Facebook and on YouTube if you have a YouTube account, and then of course Pinterest as well. Thanks, have a great day.